The modern power tool industry does not want to sell you a tool. They want to trap you in a lithium-ion subscription service. When you walk down the tool aisle at a big box store, you are presented with a massive wall of bright colors: red, yellow, green, orange. It looks like a thriving competitive market, but it is the illusion of choice. Almost every single one of those brands is owned by just a handful of massive corporate holding companies. They have spent the last 2 decades buying up the American heritage brands your grandfather trusted, closing down their original factories, and entirely changing their business model. Their new model is simple: planned obsolescence. They boast about ultra-compact size, brushless efficiency, and smart features. What they are actually doing is hollowing out the tool. They are replacing heavy forged steel transmissions with injected molded nylon planetary gears that are mathematically designed to melt under heavy pressure. Worse, they are putting Bluetooth tracking microchips inside your batteries with built-in death clocks. When that tiny computer chip fries from a drop of sweat, or when the corporation inevitably changes the battery pin layout in 5 years to force an upgrade, your entire garage of expensive equipment becomes useless landfill. Today, we are unplugging from the matrix. I'm going to show you the 5 pure, analog, corded power tools built with honest materials: brass, magnesium, and forged steel. These tools track nothing. They have no Bluetooth, no digital touchscreens, no plastic gears, and no battery death clocks. They run on raw analog electricity from the wall. These are the tools that are built to be owned, not rented, and they will outlive you. Here is the power tool whitelist. Number 1. The circular saw. 95% of circular saws sold to homeowners today are what is called direct drive. To make the saw cheap to manufacture and lightweight to hold, the blade is attached directly to the motor using a series of cheap, powdered metal or plastic gears. The problem is physics. The second that a spinning blade hits a hard knot in a piece of wet oak or catches a hidden nail, the violent shock wave travels straight up the arbor and directly into the motor. Best case scenario, it strips the plastic gears bald. Worst case scenario, the sudden stop fries the digital circuit board and the motor emits a puff of acrid white smoke. The tool is dead. If you want a saw that will plunge through concrete form, boards, and wet pressure-treated lumber for the next 3 decades without breaking a sweat, you buy the SkillSaw Worm Drive, specifically the heavy-duty corded model. This is the original, unmodified design from the 1920s that literally built modern America. In a worm drive saw, the motor sits parallel to the blade, completely separated from the point of impact. Power is transferred to the blade through a massive solid brass and steel corkscrew gear system. This completely isolates the motor from kickback shock waves, and it generates an unstoppable, bone-breaking amount of torque. It is heavy, and that weight is a feature, not a flaw. The weight keeps the saw firmly planted in the cut so it does not buck back at you. But here is the real secret of the worm drive. You do not update this tool's firmware, you change its oil. On the side of the metal housing there is a small brass nut. The entire transmission sits in a sealed liquid oil bath, exactly like the transmission in a 1960s pickup truck. Keep the oil fresh, and this saw is virtually indestructible. Number 2. The angle grinder. Cheap angle grinders are designed to commit suicide. They are the most violently abused tools in any shop, and by design, they inhale the exact metal and masonry dust they are creating. In a $30 disposable grinder, that microscopic metallic dust gets sucked through the intake vents and coats the cheap, unprotected internal copper wiring. It immediately creates a short circuit and incinerates the motor. Or worse, the cutting wheel binds up in a piece of heavy steel. In a cheap tool, the motor cooks itself in about 3 seconds of stalling. People end up buying 5 cheap grinders in a year because they keep burning them out, creating a massive false economy. The antidote to this scam is the Metabo Marathon series. Specifically, the heavy-duty corded grinders still forged in their German factories, not the cheap spin-offs. Modern tool brands try to solve bind-ups with cheap digital sensors that frequently fail or lock you out of the tool. Metabo uses an entirely mechanical automatic safety clutch. If your cutting wheel pinches in a piece of steel, there is no microchip deciding what to do. A purely mechanical clutch instantly and physically disconnects the drive to save the motor from burning up and to save your wrists from snapping. And those internal copper windings that usually short out? Metabo coats their motors in a proprietary rock-hard epoxy armor. Red-hot steel dust literally bounces off the wiring. Furthermore, they use auto-stop carbon brushes. When the brush wears down after years of hard use, it physically pops itself off the commutator so it does not score the metal, gently letting you know it is time for a $5 replacement. It is absolute mechanical supremacy over digital fragility. Number 3. The woodworking router. The tool industry is currently obsessed with forcing digital LED screens and delicate touchscreen speed controls onto woodworking tools. This is an engineering crime. A router is a tool that operates in a chaotic environment, constantly covered in fine, static charged sawdust and moisture. If a single drop of sweat or a splash of water hits that cheap LED speed control screen, your $250 tool is completely bricked. Furthermore, modern routers use cheap plastic base plates that warp under the heat of the motor, causing your bit to sit unevenly and ruining your expensive woodwork. Skip the digital aisle entirely and buy the Bosch 1617. This is a 20-year-old design that Bosch refuses to change because it is physically perfect. There is no plastic housing to warp. The entire motor casing and the fixed base are forged from solid, thick-walled magnesium and aluminum. This metal construction does more than make it durable. It acts as a giant heatsink, drawing extreme temperatures away from the motor so it can run for hours without thermal throttling. The on-off switch is not a delicate digital button. It is a hard analog toggle switch, heavily shrouded in a thick rubber boot to keep the dust out. But the real reason it makes the forever list is the maintenance. It features externally accessible carbon brushes. With a simple flathead screwdriver, you can unscrew the two black caps on the side of the metal housing, pull out the worn-down carbon brush, drop a cheap replacement in, and the tool runs like it was built yesterday. This tool is explicitly designed to be maintained by you at your workbench, not packaged up and mailed back to a corporate repair center. Number 4. The rotary hammer. When you need to drill a hole into solid concrete or brick, the hardware store will try to sell you a generic battery-powered hammer drill. This is a complete scam. A standard hammer drill uses two ridged metal plates inside the plastic housing that simply rub and slip against each other as they spin, creating a mild vibration. They are incredibly loud, highly inefficient, and literally destroy themselves under their own friction heat. It takes 5 minutes of agonizing, ear-piercing pressure just to drill a single hole, while the vibration destroys your elbows. If you want to put a hole in stone, you buy the brand that commercial skyscraper builders use. You buy a Hilti. A heavy-duty corded Hilti rotary hammer does not use cheap rubbing plates. It uses a true electro-pneumatic piston. Inside the heavy casing is a miniature internal air compressor. As the motor turns, a steel piston physically compresses air and fires a heavy metal striker directly against the back of the drill bit, thousands of times a minute. It is not just drilling, it is physically punching the concrete into dust while it turns. It takes 4 seconds to do what the cheap drill does in 5 minutes. The entire transmission of a Hilti is sealed in a heavy grease bath inside a glass fiber reinforced casing. They do not rattle your arms to death because the pneumatic air gap absorbs the shock. Hilti tools do not have a planned lifespan. They are famously known on commercial job sites for outlasting the guys who bought them. Number 5. The heavy torque drill. Modern tool marketing is obsessed with ultra-compact models. Manufacturers want the drill as tiny and light as possible. To make a drill that small, engineers are forced to compromise. They use wafer-thin nylon planetary gears stacked tightly together inside a thin plastic shell. Under normal use, these designs seem fine, but under extreme torque, like mixing thick buckets of concrete, running a heavy hole saw through a solid door, or drilling through triple-layered studs with an auger bit, those plastic teeth shear right off. You will hear a loud snap. The motor will keep whining, but the chuck will stop spinning. The tool is dead, and the manufacturer will call it user error. The permanent solution is the Makita DS4012 spade handle drill. It is long, it is heavy, it is ugly, it will not fit in a fancy, low-profile tool belt, and it will never, ever break. This machine does not hide its internals behind a sleek plastic shell. The entire front half is a massive, exposed, die-cast aluminum gear housing. It does not use plastic planetary gears. It uses thick, heat-treated steel gears running at a low RPM to generate an unstoppable, bone-breaking amount of torque. And instead of a cheap plastic keyless chuck that slips and drops your drill bit halfway through a job, it features a massive industrial-grade keyed chuck that locks your bit in a death grip. It is the exact, uncompromised antithesis of the modern, disposable plastic drill. If you buy these 5 tools, you are officially opting out of the disposable economy. You are trading digital convenience for mechanical permanence. You will never have to walk down the power tool aisle at a big box store to replace a burnt-out motor again. But the hardware industry isn't the only one running this planned obsolescence scam. The appliances sitting inside your home right now are legally stealing from you. If you want to see exactly how your modern refrigerator was secretly engineered to die in 5 years and discover the only appliance brands that actually still last, click the video on your screen right now. I'll see you there.